everyone? I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And if you guys are returning viewers or new viewers, then please consider subscribing to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about Jim Lee returning to a Batman ongoing comic book series coming up in 2025. So there is a lot that you guys should know before we actually go over the information about Jim Lee returning to a Batman ongoing comic book series coming up in 2025. So Jim Lee is renowned as one of the best comic book artists of all time, actually. I really do love his art, honestly. He did work on one of my favorite comic books of all time, Batman Hush. And if you ask me, what is my top 5 favorite Batman comic books? Batman Hush would be right up there in the top 5. I love that series so much, and that animated movie they made should just be put in the fucking dumpster. But nevertheless, Jim Lee currently right now is the editor-in-chief at DC Comics, and he is honestly currently doing nothing at all. Like, if you ask anybody about what Jim Lee actually does for DC Comics, you are going to get as much influence as my dad had in my life. Nothing. Zero. He does nothing for DC. Literally nothing. Now, is he part of the editorial staff to get some ideas? That is about the only thing I could give him. He might just throw a random idea out there every once in a while. But literally, he does nothing. like earlier this year, it was rumored he was going to actually go back to Marvel and do their initiative for their X-Men relaunch after they finished the Krakoa era, which was the initiative of from the ashes in the beginning, or as I like to say, from the asshole, a new butt plug, because, it's just them spewing shit out of their ass, right? So he didn't take that offer from Marvel to come back, and he's still going to be with DC. And then we get this information that Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are going to be returning to a Batman ongoing series. So as you guys know, Batman is DC's biggest cash cow currently right now. Oh, yeah. So just to break this down for you guys in context, there's this thing called Detective Comics, which is where Batman first made his first appearance in issue number 37 or 17. Doesn't matter. He first appears in Detective Comics, actually. Okay, so that series is now currently all 1,000+ issues. Like with Superman, he has Action Comics, right? Then DC, later on in their comic book history, split that from Superman and Batman. So you have Action Comics, and then you have Superman. And then they constantly reboot the Superman and Batman title. So this one for Batman, which is just Batman, has ran since 2016, which started with Tom King. This one currently right now, Chip Zdarsky has been running it for a while, and it's currently at issue 154 coming up. And I think by the end of this year, it'll end off at 155, 56, somewhere around there, right? And Chip Zdarsky's run on Batman, I haven't read everything. I've just kind of seen things here and there. I don't really talk about something unless I've actually read it. He currently did that event called Gotham War, and I've read a little bit about it, and it's pretty bad, actually. So, as you guys know, Batman should be the best-selling comic on the market, bar none. Chip Zdarsky has essentially made the recent Batman run non-existent. And nobody even really reads Detective Comics either, which is currently being written by Ram V, right? So that's the thing here, is that we got to 150 issues with with basically Tom King and a few other people getting this run all the way up there. And 150 issues is not bad in this current comic landscape, but who do you talk to where they're like, you know what, bro, I'm really looking forward to that new Batman issue? Nobody. The only thing people have looked forward to recently with Batman is Absolute Batman, and that's in an alternate universe, which is done by Scott Snyder, actually. That's not the main continuity Batman. So, yeah, the thing that to really bring up here with Jim Lee, because the reason why I had to tie that into this, because, guys, Jim Lee, as much as I love that guy, he's got some Ethan Van Sciver traits where he kind of takes his little sweet time doing stuff. He's had this issue for a very long time where he kind of gets laid, and he gets... Basically, if he gets bored of something, he'll just take his sweet time on it, and he just won't really give a fuck anymore. But the art will still be good, right? But that's the thing, guys. That's unacceptable, even for someone like him, right? So if they're bringing back Jim Lee, you better make sure he is dedicated to this current... Are you going to basically reboot from issue 156? Or are you just going to go and cash in on a new Batman #1? Because what you could do, you make a Batman #1, Jim Lee variant, sell a bunch of number ones, comic book sells out, right? But the thing here with me personally is that if you've been someone that's invested into these comic book runs from like issue 1 all the way up to 150, the same thing they did with the Flash earlier this year when they rebooted, right? You know, if the Flash was like 800 issues from Rebirth up until Dawn of DC, they rebooted it back to a number 1, and it's like, well, people get that much invested into an ongoing series where they're gonna reboot it from 100 issues back to 1. Either way, I don't like it. I would just say if you want to get the bump in sales, do the number 1. But if you want to keep some, I don't know, integrity with your customers that have been maybe following this series since 2016, not myself, I bought them in trade, but you guys see my point there. You keep the 150 there because it's hard to get comic books guys up to these big numbers like that. Even for someone like Batman, 155 to 156, that's a lot of issues right there. So is Jim Lee dedicated right now to do this? I don't know, honestly, because he's not dedicated to run DC. He ain't doing
dude, he's never. This is the thing about Jim Lee, though, dude. He's never been dedicated to shit except for early in his career where he made a name for himself.
He was really dedicated to Image when he went over there with those guys, remember?
Well, he wasn't really dedicated to them at all. He didn't turn shit in on time ever. Any of the books he was ever associated with. Gen 13, constantly late, and so frustrating was it for his co-creator, J. Scott Campbell. The guy dropped off the book altogether and went off and did something without Jim Lee called Danger Girl for Cliffhanger. But Cliffhanger suffered the same fate of the vast majority, short of, I think, Savage Dragon, I think, is still around,
still going.
Kind of.
That's, yeah, that I think last time I checked, I could be wrong. That's at like the 280s, right now.
And no, you've got like, 10 people that read it because nobody ever talks about Savage Dragon. Nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
But you've got Spawn still around with multiple books, and that's the only thing that really kept Image alive. I don't know how their format still works because it's all very niche shit. Top Cow being an imprint under Image is one of the things that helped Image a lot. And the Wildstorm universe that Jim Lee was trying to build inside of Image, it never worked out. He was labeled as co-creator on a bunch of shit that really never worked without the people that left him on it. And then he did his own book, Divine Right, which wasn't bad, but it was late as fuck. Like late.
But that's so consistently late with him, though. Like, literally.
That's him constantly. He couldn't even keep Wildstorm alive. He sold it to DC. I mean, that's why. The real reason that he is there is because DC sunk a fuck ton of money into buying Wildstorm from basically Jim Lee, brought Jim Lee over, and realized that it really probably wasn't just Jim Lee building all of these things, because all the stuff in Wildstorm was co-created with somebody else. But it was more artists. It was a bunch of artists who these guys are pre-Ethan Van Sciver, I'm going to say. Ethan Van Sciver was very indie when these guys were hitting their stride. He was making shitty Cyberfrog comics on fucking barroom napkins and shit and trying to sell them at Harris Comics where he had to blow somebody or something.
That's the thing I want to add to your point, which is like, I like Jim. I really do like his art, guys. I think he's great. Even so today, he's made some art pieces that I think are still really, really good, even stuff back in his prime. But it is if we're gonna rag on Ethan for being late, he's had this problem forever, honestly. But the only reason why he doesn't get it as bad is because he doesn't do anything that involves like drama or anything. He's mostly a quiet guy. Like, he's mostly like a guy that just reverts to himself. He answers things very politely. He's apparently a very, very nice guy. You know, back when the Snyderverse was destroyed and that Snyder fan asked him at Comic-Con, is Zack Snyder stuff going to be continuing? He very politely answered, we're not going to continue with that universe anymore. He's a very polite guy. You can tell he's not putting that on for show, I think. Well, you know? He's he's Asian. Which is
older Asian guy. It's just the way he is. But I don't think there's anything wrong with him on in that sense. But the work ethic and the keeping up on things, because when it comes to being an artist, like he got through Hush and he did good on that. But there's no way he could have kept up an on.
If you look at the history, that even those were late. Remember, those were late.
Yeah, some of those
too.
were late. But that's the thing. None of them are. Think about this, dude. Your high quality, high caliber artists, and I'll still count Ethan as one of those. Your people who are pumping out this really great graphic art. Most of them could never be consistent enough at it to keep their careers up and going. Even my favorite guy, Joe Madureira, he didn't even draw the ending to his book here 20 literal fucking years later when he finished it. But none of them. The only person whoever went to Image Comics and successfully continued to produce art consistently, good art too, was Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane might very well be the GOAT of comic book artists, period. Any publisher, Marvel or DC, would both give their left nut to get him to fucking give them a cover.
And the thing is, Todd is never coming back after that 90s bullshit they did to him.
He's done.
Never.
He doesn't have to do shit. The man's children don't have to do anything. And he's more interested in being a businessman. The other artist, actually, who came out of Image that was consistent and good, he was kind of Todd's protege, I almost think, was Greg Capullo, who did Spawn art for so very long while Todd was still writing it. Todd is also one of the few artists who actually managed to transition successfully into being a writer in writing Spawn. None of the rest of them can do it. None of the rest of them could really keep up a story that kept fans interested and people engaged with it. And Spawn has been ongoing for so long that it's got a solid fan base that keeps it alive. Spawn was so huge it kept Image alive, because the rest of these people who couldn't keep up with their creations, like Jim Lee, that and when we get to talking about Rob Liefeld, the same thing. When you talk about like Youngblood and shit, Rob Liefeld, that book never did anything or went anywhere. I don't know how. That and most of the characters were derivative as fuck, and it was just like this Avengers extreme. Yeah, that was it. But
Scoop.
I was going to say one thing really quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, dude, that may be great. No, the reason that Batman, the current writer of Batman, is completely disinteresting is, like many other creators before him, he's just ripping off a story that already existed. The War in Gotham is old as fuck. Like, seriously, War Games was a long time ago, and a not bad story, actually. I picked all of it up in trade. I believe Spoiler died in this. You still got Oracle in this. Like, this is like outside of a major earthquake or No Man's Land kind of thing. This is your kind of classic modern era Batman story here, dude. It was really good. It was well done. Who was writing at the time in this? There's so many different books that got tied up into it.
Let's get into this scoop. Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb return to ongoing Batman comic in 2025. The Batman Hush team of Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are returning to the ongoing Batman comic book from next year, March or April. Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb reunite for a new Batman ongoing comic starting March or April 2025. So this could also imply that they're going to do something completely different. So they're going to have another separate Batman series start with them over the 155 issue Batman ongoing series right now. Could be. Jim Lee's return adjusts the current Batman comic schedule, delaying upcoming issues. And keep in mind, DC already know that Jim Lee has basically fulfillment issues because other Batman books got pushed back and delayed because they know that they have to get at least like 6 issues in with this guy because they know he might eventually fall off if he doesn't care anymore about what he's doing. DC aims to avoid past delays by building up completed issues for a smooth release. That's good. So at least they acknowledge that Jim Lee might flake at some point. So they already have a back catalog of books to release so they can get someone new on the book just in case it happens. Speculation arises about a potential new Batman #1 with Lee and Loeb's comeback. I would say just for integrity purposes, just do a brand new Batman ongoing series with them because I think that would sell better than trying to basically cancel 155 plus issue Batman ongoing series that people invested their fucking money into just to reboot back to a #1 for some cheap sales. I would say do that. Earlier today, I mentioned that the current Batman comic book by Chip Zdarsky was meant to be released every 2 weeks. Then it wasn't. And it hasn't been pushed out to every month again. But what comes next? And why the change in schedules? Well, the headline of this article should have filled you in. The Batman Hush team of Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb are returning to the Batman ongoing comic book next year in March or April 2025. They were originally expected to return in November/December, hence the increased schedule for Chip's run to get it out of the door. Then schedules changed again. I understand that Jim Lee has been drawing comic books since the spring and a number of issues have already been completed. but clearly DC Comics would now like to get a few more under the belt so we don't get problems that have plagued Jim Lee's comics in the past, especially considering his duties as chief creative officer, publisher, and president of DC Comics. However, working on this comic is a major part of the reason that Jim Lee signed up with DC Comics for a considerable period rather than jumping ship to Marvel Comics for their X-Men relaunch. They just don't want to have have Ryan Benjamin take over with the third issue. Whether this gets a new Batman #1 or not, I don't know. My gut instinct says yes, but they went the other way 22 years ago. And yes, I know that some people will doubt this, but my sources are good, and I have been pretty good about this kind of thing in the past. Or, of course, past performance is no indicator of future success, I know. Yes, and see, this is some of, you know, Jim Lee's artwork here. Obviously, this one right here is just iconic in of itself. This is one of the best Batman images made, in my opinion, ever. Looks so damn good. In 2002, Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee ran in Batman number 608 to issue 619. And indeed, DC editorial would have preferred it if it had been a separate miniseries. But Jim Lee insisted that it would be the regular Batman comic, like Year One and Uncanny X-Men. And back then, DC Comics were less keen on a relaunch. Jim Lee said that he would make his first issue sell like a #1 instead. And it did. And has continued to sell like a #1 since. Yeah. Jim Lee is so good at art. You put his name on any variant cover, anything, it sells. It's just because he just has that name built in now at this point. What will they do this time? Batman issue number 158 or Batman 1? You know, maybe after he could get around to finishing All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder, 1963 annual, or Pearl or The Deep, either or. Yeah, that's the thing is Jim Lee, from what I remember, Jim Lee never even finished All-Star Batman and Robin because that failed. That whole series
it just didn't do very well. I mean, and I think I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and said that it was some conflict between Frank Miller just being frustrated with Jim Lee not getting shit turned in on time. But yeah,
so, yeah, man. What are your closing thoughts on Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb returning for a ongoing Batman comic in 2025? I'll ask you this: do you think they're gonna do a #1 fresh or reboot the 150 issue they already got in?
I don't see a point to rebooting it because I can tell you right now, Jim Lee isn't going to stay on it. It's going to be maybe 12 issues you get, and he'll be out. Because here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he gets paid a page rate for this shit or not. If he does, it's too fucking expensive for them to keep him doing that. But what else is he doing? He's real. I think he just collects a check from DC, or he collected a huge check from them when they bought Wildstorm. But tell me what Jim Lee in the last 20 years has done for more than a couple issues, really. I mean, maybe they get him to do cover art for a little while. I don't know, but
that's all he does still. Well, this is what I'll say. What they could do is that just do a #1. They already have enough. They said they have enough back catalog right now of issues. I imagine they probably have 7 issues done with him. Have him complete the story arc, make it feel like an actual arc, and then ask him after the 12th issue's done, whenever you get to that point, hey, are you really still feeling this? Because we could just end it right here and to just say this is a arc of whatever.
You don't need to start over again with that either.
Yeah.
Just leave it.
I will say this right now. If you reboot, because I hate it when they did it with The Flash. The Flash had 800 issues in. If they reboot 158 issues just to sell a cheap gimmick of a #1, man, that is going to make a lot of people mad.
They deleted all of their continuity to sell cheap #1s.
I will say this: just start a fresh Batman #1 because, guys, DC this year currently has about 29 Batman series that they've ran. They're no stranger to a #1. Just before we even did this news in the show that you guys should watch on my channel, which is Master Swag King, not the comics and manga channel where this segment's uploaded to. We just told you in the show there's a Batman DC Black Label book with Full Moon or something. They'll always do. Dude, we just Batman Year One with Mark Waid. Really? Batman Year One? What the fuck is that? they
No,
love
they
Batman at DC. Always will do a #1 for him.
well, it's because it sells, and I think the best thing that they could do, if they really wanted to keep it around, not have to fuck around, what they should do, what they really should do with this, depending on, I don't know, it doesn't have to depend on continuity. Bring back the Shadow of the Bat anthology series. Shadow of the Bat ran for, let's see, how long did Shadow of the Bat run? Shadow of the Bat produced some of the like greatest Batman stories, and just because it was so, because he's got such a history, at least he used to before they fucked it up. Batman Shadow of the Bat, it ran a lot longer than 80. That's just 85 to 86. So let's see here. How long did that run? I'm trying to find first series. So yeah, there were multiple series, but basically what Shadow of the Bat was, it was in continuity, but out of like different periods of Batman's life. So you might have something very early in his career, something maybe contemporary and current. Like if they had crossovers or if they had a big arc, sometimes they do Shadow of the Bat stories that were current, but then maybe they'd go back 10 years ago to when he was still with Dick Grayson Robin or something else. They would jump around his timeline and tell these stories. They just showed you
that right now. Remember the whole Batman and Robin year 1 thing? They're just constantly jumping around. Yeah.
But see, that's what the book did. It went around in the timeline and it told you short stories that went on during Batman's career, because he'd been around for so fucking long that you could just tell stories inside of the time, because there's time jumps and different perceptions of the way time has passed in Gotham and everything else. But really it was just to tell good Batman stories without the trappings of the current 2 books, but they were still in context. It was a really creative idea. It would be, you know, a 2-issue arc, a 3-issue arc, a single standalone issue, didn't matter. And that would be interesting, and it would give them a lot of room to let Jim Lee do something and then walk away from it and maybe have a filler issue, because that's the other thing they would do. Sometimes they'd have great artists and great writers, and sometimes they would just have some dude thrown in a filler issue. Like, it would happen that way.
That's my biggest worry right now with him coming back, is like, is he dedicated to whatever Batman ongoing series is it going to be? And does he want to be in that series for the long haul, to the point where he's turning in consistent issues? Because the fact that they even had to know that he wouldn't probably do that, so they had to get like 6 issues in already, potentially, or 7, that means they know he's easily going to be dropping out. If the sales numbers aren't there, he's dropping out of the series. That's why I say just do it for 12 issues. Do 1 arc, 1 off with him and Jeff Loeb. They're reunited, and it feels so good. Just do that 1 arc, good, and we leave it. That's it. No more. That's it.
Yeah,
what else
I think that's fine. Like, get an arc out, do a good classic story, and sell trades. That's fine.
That's it. Do it like the Batman. Basically, do what they wanted to do for Batman Hush, but just do it like this: 12 issues, have it be a full, complete story arc with a beginning, middle, end, and you sell the trades for years and years. Because, you know, Jim Lee's art is great, and I do believe Jeff Loeb can tell a good story, you know?
No, Jeff Loeb has great stories. Yeah. This is the sad thing about a lot of the Image guys like Jim Lee, is that they peaked and they were legends. Basically, when they started, and like that first couple years of Image, when they did it and it didn't completely fall out from under them, they peaked then. Like maybe not financially, but as far as the comic book zeitgeist, their name carried them for so much longer. J. Scott Campbell's name and ability to draw hot chicks carried him for so much longer. Jim Lee's name and ability to sell off all of these creator-owned IPs to DC to die. They never did anything with them, and they never will. The Authority's going to be a movie. Nobody fucking cares about The Authority. Let's please just forget that. Nobody cares.
Dude, DC fans always do that.
Rip off Superman and Batman. No one cares.
The DC fans will always do that. They're like, I care about this random group of characters I never once heard of in my entire life. And then in the box office numbers, it shows they didn't care either. Why can't so
Bro, not even in that.
Oh, you know, I didn't watch the movie because like my wife was sitting with my brother and I caught them in the act and I saw his cock in her ass. It's like,
what happened?
Just say you didn't care.
Dude, Gen 13 was huge, and it made it 20 issues before everybody stopped giving a fuck because J. Scott Campbell left, and the big tits and the sexuality of the redheaded chick just fell away. And they tried to keep it up, but it kept failing because they never put the artists, the people who created, didn't care enough about their IP. They were too. This is the thing about artists. Artists do this. I'm going to move off to the next thing. I'm going to move off. Look at EVS. Is he going to finish his book? Who the fuck knows? He could get a new story in his head tomorrow and be off focusing on that. Tell me how good that stupid that dead guy book of his, he paid somebody else to basically write for him because he just didn't feel like, dude, it's your story and everything else. If you can't really bring it forward and you can't own it and you can't sit there and develop it, then why do you think anybody else is going to care? Because you managed to get 20 issues of it in, or 2 issues of Cyberfrog, in Cyberfrog's case. Do you think that any artists are going to care about your next story? And why should your fans care? All they constantly did was abandon things. And this is how I know that Jim Lee will not do this. He peaked decades ago as far as being a comic book artist. He came back for a blip in Hush. And then he did just that.
Yeah.
Nothing. So like, dude, he comes back to Batman. I hope so. I think it'll be good. I don't know. I might pick up the trade, but I'll buy DC?
issue 1.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's no reason not to buy issue 1 to see what he's doing with Jeff Lowe. But that's the problem here, guys, is Jim Lee, I just don't trust he will be consistently
he's done
enjoying what he's doing unless the sales are there. Unless the sales are there, I do feel like he's gonna end up falling off of it, and they're gonna end up having some problems with him. But that's just my prediction. Maybe he's all in now, just like DC's new initiative. They're all in to try to save DC Comics. So just want to let you guys know this. So when you see segments like this on the Master Swag King Comics and Manga channel, the segments were clipped out of my MSK show that I do on my main channel, which is just called Master Swag King. So if you want to see the full show live, go and subscribe to my main YouTube channel. But if you just come here for the comic book news clips, like we're going to be doing starting with this one, then subscribe. We're going to start pumping out more news content for you guys. And if Professor Savage Dad's not here, like he's not there when I do my solo comic book reviews, then I'll just do the news by myself, you know? So make sure you guys go check out Savage Dad's YouTube channel and Rumble channel. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Thank you guys for checking out this video. If you guys are a returning viewer, new viewer, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it and comment down below. Also, make sure you guys hit the notification bell. That way you guys can get notified on whenever I upload a brand new video. And thank you guys, and we'll see you later. I'm Master Swag King. We're signing out, guys.